A guy who spent his entire career turning left and right on road courses halfway around the world showed up in America, got handed a stock car, and started beating drivers who have been doing this their whole lives. Not occasionally, consistently. Shane Van Gisbergen sits fifth in the NASCAR Cup Series standings after just 4 races in 2026, and the names he's ahead of read like a Hall of Fame ballot. Christopher Bell, Joey Logano, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin. These are men who grew up in this sport. SVG has been doing it full-time for less than 2 years. So how does something like this actually happen? It didn't come from one lucky weekend. It came from Saturday O'Reilly race at COTA, a record-chasing Sunday, a survival masterclass at Phoenix, and then a brutal reality check in Las Vegas that reminded everyone, this sport doesn't hand anything to anybody. Here is the full story, race by race, from the moment it all started clicking to the moment it all fell apart, and why 2026 might still be SVG's most important season yet. Before the main Cup race at Circuit of the Americas, SVG was entered in the Saturday O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race, driving the number 9 car for JR Motorsports. This was the one track that had always beaten him. He had never won at COTA in any NASCAR series. Every time he came to Austin, he was fast, but something always went wrong. Not this time. SVG led 31 of the 65 laps and charged from 6th to 1st in a 5-lap shootout at the end. He finally got his COTA win, his 5th career O'Reilly Series victory, and his first of 2026. The winning margin was 0.780 seconds over runner-up Austin Hill. It was also JR Motorsports' 10th straight road course win and their 106th victory overall. But the most talked-about moment of that race had nothing to do with SVG winning. It had everything to do with a 17-year-old kid named Brent Cruz. On lap 24, Cruz dove deep into Turn 1 and passed both SVG and 19-year-old Connor Zilisch to take the lead. He held it for 5 laps, becoming the youngest driver ever to lead a lap in the O'Reilly Series. NASCAR had only lowered its age limit to 17 at the end of last season, and here was Cruz immediately making history. After the race, SVG was asked about Cruz, and his answer told you everything about the kind of racer Brent Cruz is. "That was awesome to watch," SVG said. "At the start, he was driving like crazy. I couldn't drive like that. I'd be worn out in 2 laps. He was just crazy on the limit. He looks like he's an amazing talent, and I'm sure he'd be really good in not much time." SVG also knew Cruz's aggressive style wouldn't last the full race, and he was right. But he still had the respect to call it out publicly. The Instagram comment section under NASCAR's post about Cruz exploded, with fans calling it one of the most exciting debuts in recent series memory. Meanwhile, SVG's Trackhouse racing teammate Connor Zilisch was supposed to be one of the main challengers that day. But Zilisch hit an edge early, broke a left rear brake rotor, and dropped to the back. He still charged all the way back up into the top 5 before being spun out late by Corey Day, a move Zilisch made clear he wasn't happy about. "All I want is an apology," Zilisch said, "but he just stands over there and stares at me and makes it worse." When these two are healthy on the same road course, it is going to be must-watch television. SVG and Zilisch are expected to be the 2 drivers to beat at every road course race this year. SVG came into Sunday's Cup race with 5 straight road course wins. 1 more, and he would tie Jeff Gordon's all-time record of 6 consecutive road course wins, a record Gordon set between 1997 and 2000. The whole NASCAR world was watching. There was one immediate problem. SVG started 13th, his worst qualifying spot in 12 road course starts. A lot of people thought his streak was already in trouble. He proved them wrong immediately. By lap 7, he had already moved up to 6th. By the time the final stage began, it was down to 3 drivers, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, and SVG. Those 3 had separated themselves from the entire field. SVG passed Blaney on the opening lap of the final restart and locked onto Reddick's bumper. He chased the number 45 Toyota for over 10 laps, but Reddick was perfect. Every single lap, especially out of turn 20, the final corner before the long front straight, Reddick would gap SVG by 3 or 4 car lengths. There was simply no way through. SVG finished second, 3.944 seconds behind Reddick. The streak ended at 5. Kevin Harvick broke it down on his podcast afterward. At the end of that race, he was throwing everything he had at it. But they just didn't have the pace this weekend that Reddick and Blaney had. SVG was honest about it, too. I knew I had gotten beaten by somebody better, he said. Reddick's car was really good, and he never put a foot wrong. He was driving really well, consistent line, accurate through the bundles. Knowing we got beat by someone that was better is good. Just need to work harder. Reddick's win made history of its own. He became the first driver in Cup Series history to open a season with 3 consecutive victories. Even 2311 co-owner Denny Hamlin said from the post-race press conference, "I'm not going to see it again in my lifetime. Someone to go out there and win 3 races in a row to start the season." As for SVG, that second-place finish moved him up 11 spots in the standings, from outside the top 15 all the way to 5th in the championship after just 3 races. Before the Phoenix race, SVG himself admitted that Phoenix was one of his weakest tracks. He hoped for a solid top 15. What happened instead was one of the wildest recovery drives of the 2026 season. SVG started 18th and was moving through the field steadily. Then on lap 95, a tire failed. He went off track and dropped off the lead lap. He got the free pass on lap 159 and started fighting back. Then he got caught in a multi-car accident. Then another incident. By the end, he had been involved in 2 spins and multiple crashes on a day that had 12 cautions, tying the all-time record for yellow flags at Phoenix. And he still finished 11th, making 118 green flag passes, which ranked 7th best in the entire Cup field that day. Jeff Gluck, one of NASCAR's most respected insiders, was watching from the media center and could barely explain it on his podcast, The Teardown. "I think the top of the pleasant surprises list has to be Shane Van Gisbergen," Gluck said. "He comes back to finish 11th somehow. I have no idea how that happened. I literally have no idea how that happened." SVG posted on social media right after, "P11 is a great result for the crazy day we had. The car had a lot of speed, had 2 spins, and passed a lot of cars for a good points day." The year-over-year contrast tells the full story. A year ago at Phoenix, SVG lasted just 100 laps and finished 22nd in the point standings. In 2026, after a race with 12 cautions, 2 spins, and a tire failure, he finished 11th and sat 5th in the championship. Bubba Wallace, one of SVG's closest friends in NASCAR, was asked about SVG's oval progress heading into Las Vegas. He started with a joke. "Blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while," Wallace said, laughing. But then he got serious. "I actually went to dinner with Scotty McLaughlin last weekend. I told him SVG will win on an oval soon. He's good. He's really, really good. I have a lot of confidence in him, and it shows." When SVG heard what Wallace had said, he was grateful but realistic. "I'm a long way from that. I need some luck to get there, and I don't want to win like that, but I can see it now. Every week, I'm learning things. I feel big improvements every week. I know what's going on now, rather than just being a deer in the headlights." He also put the progression into numbers. "I feel like we're running 8th to 15th most weeks. That probably doesn't sound like a lot, but we started at these tracks running 30th. So it's been a huge improvement." His first top 10 on an oval in 2026 came just 2 races into the season. In 2025, that same milestone took 31 races. Denny Hamlin didn't hold back when asked about SVG's trajectory at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. "Certainly the trend is continuing that he keeps getting better," Hamlin said. "Elite, superior drivers find a way to adapt. And he's one of those." Joey Logano was more measured. He credited the wild-card nature of the early 2026 schedule, 2 super speedways, a road course, and a chaotic Phoenix, for inflating SVG's position. He's obviously had a pretty solid start. The speedway races, and obviously the road course, you expect him to be good. I think it's just we haven't seen much normalcy yet. Still hard to look at points. Chase Elliott pointed to something deeper than just racing background. "I know there's been a lot of comparisons to his background and the similarities of the car change, but I'm sure it's still different. When I look at how his oval stuff has improved, I'm not surprised. I think he's really knowledgeable. I think he's got a great feel for just natural balance behind the wheel." Christopher Bell, who won the poll for the Las Vegas Pennzoil 400, gave the most analytical take of anyone. Fortunately for his competitors, and unfortunately for him, the weekend format handicaps him tremendously. If he would have done this years ago, where we had hours of practice and multiple sets of tires, I think he would have been a lot further along. But he's clearly getting the hang of it, and it's not going to be long before he's a factor on an oval. Then came Ryan Blaney, who delivered the quote of the entire conversation. Fans online kept asking why Cup drivers don't just study the data and copy what SVG does on road courses. Blaney addressed it directly on his podcast Door Bumper Clear. Everybody talks like, oh my God, there's so much data out there now. How can these guys just not do what he does? That's hard. You can't just emulate someone else's style. He then flipped the logic completely. Why can't Shane emulate what Denny Hamlin does at Bristol or what Kyle Larson does at Homestead? It works both ways. And on the subject of right foot braking, the technique SVG uses to devastating effect, Blaney was blunt. It's going to take me until the end of my career to right foot brake, as well as I can left foot brake right now. I'm just too far behind the game. He even used a joke to hammer the point home. If that was the case, then I would go be a brain surgeon. I would just go watch a brain surgeon do it and be like, okay, yeah, I can do that. SVG qualified 16th for the Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, came in sitting 5th in points, and had every reason to expect another solid day. What happened instead was the worst performance of his 2026 season. On the very first lap, 3 wide out of turn 4, SVG made contact with Eric Jones. The number 97 Chevrolet snapped loose at full speed and slid down the track toward the apron. In a remarkable display of car control, Van Gisbergen managed to gather the car back up and keep it off the wall, straightening the Chevrolet on the apron before rejoining the race. The save immediately went viral. NASCAR's own social media account posted the clip with the caption, "Are you serious right now, SVG?" But the save came at a cost. Sliding across the apron broke the front splitter, a key aerodynamic component that generates downforce at speed. From that point forward, the car swung unpredictably between oversteer and understeer. By the end of Stage 1, SVG had slipped to 34th and was already a lap down. The crew worked throughout the race to fix the handling, even making adjustments during the final stage break, but the damage was too severe. SVG briefly climbed as high as 31st during the middle stages before eventually going multiple laps down. He finished 36th. "I thought we were going to be on for a good day," Van Gisbergen told his crew over the radio after taking the checkered flag. "That's unfortunate. The points damage was severe." SVG dropped 11 spots, from 5th all the way down to 16th. He landed in a 3-way tie with Daniel Suarez and A.J. Allmendinger, winning out only on the tiebreaker. Chase Elliott, who sat just behind SVG the day before, now held a 51-point advantage over him. Tyler Reddick's championship lead over SVG at the Chase cutoff line stood at 138 points. While SVG's day collapsed, Denny Hamlin delivered one of the most emotional wins of the season. Penalized for exceeding the pit lane speed limit by just 0.03 miles per hour during a Stage 1 stop, Hamlin dropped deep in the field and came all the way back to win. It was his 61st career Cup Series victory, moving him past Kevin Harvick in 10th on the all-time wins list. It was also his first win since the tragic off-season death of his father. "It took a few weeks to feel like driving again," Hamlin said in Victory Lane. "This sport is all about family, and mine have sacrificed so much to help me get here. I know Dad is still looking down, saying, 'That's my boy.'" The road course calendar is coming, and SVG is widely expected to win multiple times. Under the 2026 points format, wins carry 20 additional points over a second-place finish, meaning every road course victory is a massive swing in the standings. That is SVG's path back into championship contention, and it is a real one. But ovals make up the majority of the 36-race schedule, and Las Vegas proved the ceiling is still there. SVG himself acknowledged the tightrope he is walking. "Last year, I could afford to experiment. You're locked in the playoffs, whereas now you need to get as many points as you can every week. So certainly the risk-reward ratio for me has changed a lot. The central question for the rest of 2026 is straightforward. Can SVG string together enough consistent oval finishes to stay inside the chase cutoff line during the stretches when road courses are nowhere on the schedule? The answer to that question will define his entire season.